qualities will become manifest of their own. You don't need to separately, he said, you don't need to separately try to develop, each particular quality. It will automatically, they will come by practicing, Krishna consciousness. Because the reason being, very simple, that the divine nature is actually your nature. That's your true nature. And so the more, that I become Krishna conscious, the more I associate with Krishna in the many, many ways that I can do that, which includes associating with his devotees, it includes preaching, it includes cleaning the temple, studying the Shastra. The more I do any of these things, the more my natural divine nature is uncovered, and the more the the false coverings, that's what these are, they're all false, the more they are dispersed. And it does happen in the course of time. It just takes a bit of time, that's all. For all of us. Okay. Yeah.
On the subject of demonic forces and divine forces, and you mentioned that story about that man that killed all those people and at the end of his life, that was a really bad place or whatever. What happens, is there any stories or what would happen also if he said, well, I want to turn to Krishna consciousness at that end of his life, would he still be redeemed or whatever?
I think, like at the 11th hour.
Yeah.
Certainly. Because, there's no offence that I can make so great that Krishna can't immediately remove it. At the end of the Gita, Krishna says that, if you surrender to me, I will release you from all sinful reactions. So certainly. And there are many stories of that. The greatest, the most wonderful story is the story of Jagai and Madhai. Are you familiar with that? These were, in 500 years ago, in the life of Lord Chaitanya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who started the Krishna consciousness movement. There were these two criminals living in the town, and they were murderers and rapists. They were the worst possible kind. They were brothers, and they spent their whole time in drunken orgies and destructive behavior. And so on one occasion they attacked Lord Nityananda, who was Sri Chaitanya's closest associate. And Sri Chaitanya immediately came. Nityananda wanted to forgive them, but Sri Chaitanya immediately came and he threatened to kill them. So at that point anyway, because they were frightened more than anything, I think, they threw themselves at his feet and begged his mercy. And they became great devotees. But they spent the rest of their life, it's very touching, because what they did was the community lived beside the Ganges, and everyone, the customers would go down to the Ganges on a daily basis to bathe and wash their clothes. So these two brothers stationed themselves beside the bank of the river, and they, with a spade, they cut sort of steps down to the river, and constantly repaired the steps and kept it in good order. And anyone who would come, they'd look after their things while they bathed, they would serve them, and they would beg them, look, we don't know if we offended you, we offended so many people, we harmed so many people, whatever we may have done, please forgive us. And that's how they spent the rest of their lives. So if it's genuine remorse, of course, immediately the karma can be taken away. However, at the same time, if I live my whole life forgetting Krishna, I can't really expect to suddenly be able to remember him at the 9th hour, the 10th, 11th hour. It's not really something I can count on, so it's better to start now. It's better to start, especially, Prabhupada was able to say this to us because when Prabhupada came to the West, he was an elderly man. And most of us who listened to him, we were very young. And so he always said, you know, it's good to start when you're young. Younger the better, but it's never too late.
Do you think in this world, like demonic forces, whatever, I think they can also transform into the divine forces in a lifetime? Like they can remember that they're from Krishna as well, and that they can change back to the divine force.
The qualities can change.
Yeah. Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, the sort of lust can turn into love. You should follow what I mean. You know, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, what is it that drives, Arjuna says to him, what is it that forces me to do, you know, bad things? And Krishna replied, even though I don't want to, Krishna is lust, Arjuna. Lust in the body, lust in the mind, lust in the ego, the intelligence. It sits in different parts of my being. There's this force of lust. But that lust can be transformed into love. And that's really what the Krishna consciousness process is all about. It's redirecting in my desires from the selfish desires of material to the unselfish desires of serving Krishna.
Do you think that they think that all like demonic and dark forces could always be transformed? Nothing in this universe can not be transformed by the love of Krishna.
That's right.
Ultimately.
That's right. Because it's all originated from Krishna.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you for that wonderful talk. I have a question in regards to the demigod's reaction when Krishna actually enters the mouth of Agashura. Now, is this part of the pastime because the demigods are under the spell of Yoga Maya and therefore they can't recognize the supremacy of Krishna, who Krishna is? Or, is it because there's a doubt in their mind, they're not really sure who he is? Because after all, you know, in the other pastimes, like when Lord Brahma kidnaps the coward boys, in a way he's challenging the supremacy of Krishna. He doesn't see that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. And on the other hand, Indra, in the pastime of the lifting of Govardhan hill, again, he reacts towards Krishna because Krishna stops the ceremony that his father was trying to perform in order to worship Indra. So, how do you explain this?
Well, the demigods are not free from the modes of nature. And so, like in the case of Indra, he got proud. At the same time, of course, they are devotees. And, you know, devotees also fear for Krishna. Mother Yasoda feared for a little child. That's called, of course, that's Yoga Maya. That's another kind of, the two kinds of illusions, which, you know, illusion that make me forget Krishna, but there's also the illusion that I love Krishna so much that I forget Krishna as God. And that's wanted, actually, that kind of illusion. We need to always remind ourselves that Krishna is the supreme and he is to be served. But we also want to sometimes perhaps forget a little bit the awe and reverence and feel, well, Krishna is my friend. He might even be dependent on me. That's how the pujari thinks. Pujari is always worried that, you know, the offering must not be late, not because he fears. The pujari shouldn't fear that Krishna will punish me. Krishna not going to punish you for being late with the offering. But Krishna might be hungry. That's how the pujari is meant to think. Yeah, run.
What you said about the demoniac feeling depression towards the end of their lives, it's said that Charles Darwin has some quite famous quotes. He said he took no enjoyment in poetry and various other arts after he proposed his theory of life coming from matter. He became very downcast towards the end of his life. It's quite noteworthy.
Yeah. Yeah.